Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to our call for tonight. I'm going to be talking about the same thing that I was talking about before, because it's still relevant, and that is how you're going to position yourself, in the market you're in. And we can still position ourselves as an educator. We can still position ourselves as a reliable source of information, even in the age of AI, and especially in the age of AI. And so, even in the midst of AI, people still need to be guided reliably. And so, regardless of what part of AI you have chosen to talk about, or even if your focus is not necessarily just AI, if you're trying to help people to, generate more income, they need to know where AI fits. And so, you need to still be a reliable source of guidance. And so, you and I, we still need to position ourselves as educators. We still need to be the one that's going to be not just that knows how to use the stuff, but knows where it fits, how it can be contextualized, and what can be done with it, than just to generate money. Now, obviously, if you're working inside the make money online space, all of those things are going to work in a specific kind of way, right? You can obviously create affiliate products, you can create products to launch, but a lot of people don't necessarily want to work in that niche. I know I talk to a lot of ultimate insiders who you don't necessarily want to be in the make money online space. You want to work with other business people, or you want to work with other people that start their own business, and that's a totally legitimate thing to want to do. And so the nature and training has changed, right, since AI has been a thing, and but other ways it hasn't, right? So in some ways training has changed, but in other ways it really hasn't changed. And you and I both know, and you may be one of them, people have a lot of trust in AI, right? As the beginning and the end, right? So people really kind of feel like, boy, if I could just figure out all the ways in which AI can help me, I'm probably going to make a lot more money. And to some degree, maybe that's true, right? And so people have a lot of trust that it's going to be the beginning and end solution for all their business needs. That may or may not be true, but you and I know, and we experience it every day, people have a lot of trust in it. And so yeah, it's just not always going to be true. And here's one of the reasons. The first, it takes a learning process past basics, past questioning, and straight to application and information. So, in other words, you don't have to know anything. You can just generate something and you can just implement based on what the AI tells you. And so you could do that with just about any subject in any area. And that's a problem. Right? Because sometimes you need to know why something is the way it is. You need to be able to understand some of the underlying principles in something. I mean, yes, I can generate a solution to fix my sink, but I don't know anything about fixing the sink. I don't know anything about plumbing. I don't know anything about the pipes and stuff that go on underneath my table. I can probably get a few things right, but there could be a lot of things I get wrong. And that's just one aspect. So the learning process, the understanding process, which is understanding the basics, questioning and kind of understanding where it fits, and then moving on to application. Well, AI skips those first two parts. It skips the basics, it skips questioning, and moves straight to application implementation. That's not always going to work for everybody, especially your customers. If you're talking about the area of your expertise, you probably already know that even beyond hallucination, that the AI just gets things wrong. And not only that, it summarizes and it skips some things. Now, people still have a lot of trust in it. So when they get the answer, they have no idea that the AI skipped anything. And again, I say that as someone who trains people in learning how to use AI and training people that they should be using AI. And I say this as someone who is a believer in its potential. However, we do not need to tell everybody that they can trust it for everything, that's getting smarter every day, and it's going to know everything. If you take your area of expertise, you probably already know that sometimes it just misses things. And it's not that the AI is bad that it does that, it just can't know everything. Right. And there's certain things that you know by being an expert in your area, your trade, that an AI just cannot know. And sometimes those things it doesn't know is crucial. Right. And so you have to still be the reliable area of guidance in your market or niche, wherever it is that you have chosen to be the authority, wherever it is that you have chosen to be the knowledgeable person, you still need to be there. Now, again, that doesn't mean that people are actually going to run to you and buy. They might be convinced that you know more than the AI. However, it's still true that you are always going to know something in your area of expertise that an AI does not know. So one of the problems in AI is this. It skips the learning process. It goes past basics, past questioning, and goes straight to application and implementation. Now, it's a little bit like, and I use this analogy here. There's a little bit about teaching an entire class without ever having learned the alphabet or learning to read. So in other words, if you never learn the alphabet and then you use the alphabet to learn how to read, but then you skip straight to teaching a class, there are going to be some problems. There are going to be some things that get skipped. And that's pretty much what an AI does, right? It takes you past the basics. It takes you past application, which would be reading in this case, and goes straight to implementation. I'm going to teach a class. So again, you've got to have a lot of trust in an AI in order to do that. And so again, we've just got to be aware in our area where we excel, in our area where we know what the answers are, that look, people may or may not have the answers, but they're going to act like they have the answers. They're going to think they have the answers because an AI told them that they have the answers. Now, so what that means then is that again, you and I still have to be positioned as the educator so that we understand how to use AI to get to the right answer in our area of expertise. Second, the AI assumes that the person using it has already understands the right place and the time to apply it. So in other words, I can buy a GPT that'll do something, right? I can sell a GPT that does something. But you know what that does? It assumes that the person who's buying it understands when to implement it and how to implement it and the time to implement it. And more importantly, whether or not it should even be the thing to be focused on. Because sometimes we buy solutions that are looking for a problem. They're not necessarily the problem to solve. That's one of the problems that happens, and that's probably not been the case not just with AI. That's been the case in our market in general, right? Our market of information marketing is just this: we sell solutions, right, to people, whether or not they have the problem or not. We convince them that they have the problem and that they need our solution, and if they don't have that problem, we tell them to stockpile the solution, right? That's just a fact. So it assumes, right? And so AI is like that on steroids. It assumes that the person who's using it already knows what their problem is. That's not always the case. And so we have got to be there as a reliable source of information so that number one, people actually are solving the right problem. Because again, most problems that get solved are not always the right problem to get solved, and they get solved out of order. Now, when you solve a problem out of order, so in other words, let's say that you buy a solution and the solution is to a traffic problem, but you haven't yet solved what to sell to the traffic. There are opportunity costs to doing things in that out of order. So in other words, you go and you buy the traffic solution, and the traffic solution is sending you traffic, and you start to get a few sales based on that traffic. But then when the market changes, you don't necessarily fully understand the market, so you don't necessarily know what to solve. And so the problem, which is what you can deliver to the market, is the main problem that should have been solved first. Right. And so there are always going to be opportunity costs and monetary costs to get things out of order. Most of our customers solve problems out of order. And again, it's just a function of our information market, right? Because again, most of us sell solutions, most of us buy solutions, but we don't always buy them in the right order. And so sometimes we need to be the person in a marketplace that'll tell people how and in what order they need to solve the problems that they're solving. You can't just assume that because a person buys your solution that they know that this is what order it goes in, right? And so sometimes we might be willing to sell something to somebody, but they may not be solving the right problem. Here's the third thing, right? We can produce lots of things that'll make us visible. So in other words, we can produce a lot of content really fast, and we can make ourselves visible, right? So we can post to social media 10 times a day. We can create things in the span of a minute, and we can be super visible now, right? So we can have our stuff appearing every minute on the minute, right? And we can automate all those processes. Now, here's the thing about that: even if you're super visible, you still need to have a unique selling proposition. You need to have a reason for me to come back to you as a business. You still need to have upsells and cross sells. In other words, if I buy from you, you need to make sure that you're maximizing me as your customer. You still need to have a list and be building your list. And in some cases, AI can facilitate that. And in some cases, if somebody else has your customer base, you should be working with them and building an alliance, an affiliate relationships or a partner relationship. Do you understand that a USP, an upsell and cross sell, list building, and alliance, that's a marketing fundamental. Those things exist whether or not you use AI or not. And so even if you get good at all the things that AI can do, you still better have a unique selling proposition. There needs to be a reason for me to come back to you. It's a marketing fundamental. You still need to make sure that once you make one sell, you better make sure that with all the effort you expend to get a customer, you better make sure you squeeze every bit of efficient every dollar from that customer that you can, because you don't know if you're going to get that customer back. And if it's hard to get a customer, it's hard to get one customer. It's really hard and expensive to get two. And so you better make sure you've got upsells and cross sells that make sense. You better be building a list. And again, I'm not berating you if you're not doing these things. What I'm trying to tell you is that these are marketing fundamentals that exist even beyond AI. So you've got to have these things working, even if you get good at understanding what AI agents do. Because if you don't have these things operational, I guarantee you, eventually this is going to catch up with you. You can get by and not know what Nano Banana is doing today, right? You can get by and not know and not fully understand what the latest update in Notebook LM is, even though I just I just did my Notebook LM update, right? You can get by and not know those things if you have these other things operational. So, because if you don't have a USP, you don't have upsells and cross sells, you don't have list building, and you don't have the kind of partnerships and marketing alliances, there's only so many sales you're going to generate just from AI, right? So if you don't have those other things operating, then yeah, you're gonna figure out how to make money with AI, right? You're gonna sell some things, but eventually you're gonna need to focus back on those marketing fundamentals. And if you have a customer, if you have a membership, if you have a client, you better make sure your client is doing those things over and above the AI, because again, these are the things that will keep them in business. USP, upsell, cross sell, list building, and marketing alliance. They have to have those marketing fundamentals in place. So what should you be teaching your customer, right? What should you be showing them? And so yes, I think you should be teaching them how to use AI. I do. However, what should you be showing them? What's going to make a difference in their business? You got to make sure they've got fundamentals in operation. You got to make sure they've got fundamentals so that they are functional. So in other words, they happen whether or not they mean to or not. So in other words, these things are mandatory. They must happen. They must be like getting up in the morning. They must be like going to work. They must have these things operational in their business. Now, the way that you teach your customer how to do it, you put them in your business first. So you put these fundamentals in your online business first. And they must be operational. They are mandatory. You cannot skip them. And so basically, what you've got to do first, um, more than anything else, when people come to information marketing and they come into the business opportunity space, they typically come through an online course. They come through a method. They come through a coaching program. And probably the number one thing that you hear from people is, well, I joined that program and it didn't make me any money, right? It didn't do anything for me. I invested a lot of money and it never happened for me. And you hear that a lot. Maybe you had that experience. I've had that experience because a lot of us come to information marketing and we come through a course. And so you might have come through a platform, and that platform did some training for you. That might have been your introduction to information marketing. And you might say, well, I've been a newbie. I'm trying to figure it out. If somebody could just kind of show me the ropes, and they show you some of the ropes, but there's some fundamentals that you have in order for those ropes to work for you, right? Somebody can show you the ropes and they're going to show you one way into information marketing. Now, let me just give you a little game here for a second. Information marketing is a trade. So you don't need to have a college degree. You don't need to have a profession. You don't need to have a license. You need to learn some aspect of the trade, and you got to work it until you understand how it works, until it starts making you money. It is a trade. So again, now it can become a profession, and for a lot of people it has. And so some people it turns into a business, and then will turn into a profession when they start consulting. However, understand something. You have to treat it like a trade when you get started. There's some things you got to learn. And so your customers are going to be the same way. And so you got to help them to learn how to learn. Most people don't know how to learn. And again, you may have, they may be college educated, but they still don't know how to learn. Some people can come from the corporate world. They never learned how to learn. Some people can come from having operated how to trade. They still may not have learned how to learn. They learn how to do their trade. You've got to help your people in the age of information, in the age of AI. You got to help your customers learn how to learn. Number one thing you got to do. And there's a classical approach to do that. Now, I don't want you to get lost in what I'm about to say. It's going to sound very academic and very, very pedantic, very teacher like. But understand something. This is how you learned anything. It's how you learned everything. It's how you learned how to ride a bike. It's how you learn how to read. It's how you learn your timetables. The classical approach is based on the trivium. Number one, there's the grammar. In other words, we learn the basics. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, the grammar. You got to understand the basics. You got to understand the ABCs of the subject. Second, logic. You have to start questioning it. So in other words, do I use it here? Does that make sense? Does it? Why does that work the same way? Until you question something, you don't really learn it. And so you've got to get to the point where you get into a subject and you don't take it at face value. You have to question it. And then once you question it, you start to get it to a point where you can then get it into your brain. You can start to use it. Grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Rhetoric is when you start to put it into your own life and your business. So in other words, you then start to take the principle and you put it in your own business and even teach other people. It's the trivium. That's how you have to teach your people that if they haven't learned the basics, they don't learn the ABCs. I promise you this. Whatever you don't learn the grammar in, it's always going to catch up with you. You're going to have to pay somebody to teach you. You have to pay somebody to do it. Yeah, and so a lot of people think, well, hey, you know what? I can just pay somebody for that. That's what I go and I get my outsourcer for. You still need to learn the grammar of what you're trying to do. Whether that's AI, whether that's traffic, whether that's writing a sales page. You say, well, no, I don't need to know the grammar of writing a sales page. I just get AI to do it. You still need to tell what the AI what to do. And most people don't know how to correct an AI for the sales page. I promise you they don't. And so you've got to teach people how to learn. You got to teach people how to teach them to learn how to learn. Second thing is you got to teach your customers how to think. What do I mean by that? You see in a lot of our products, and I use as my example the theory of constraints. And I don't have time to go through it here, but basically, if your customer doesn't understand what their bottleneck is, they're probably applying things out of order. So in other words, if they don't understand, let's say that they don't have a USP, getting traffic means they'll get a customer and they'll never get that customer back coming back, right? And so you got to teach them how to think. And so the theory of constraints will teach a business person, how to think about their business. And so if you understand the theory of constraints, you will always be in a process of improving your business, solving the next problem, and continually getting better. And you do it in a logical order. You do it in the way in which the problems come up and you keep solving them one by one. Because if you don't, you know what you're doing? You're just sitting around waiting to get sold to. Well, here's a great AI thing, and it's going to do this, and it's going to do all this stuff for you. And then, the next week something else comes out, and you're going to get that too. Listen, that's an endless cycle. But what you've got to do, and I've got to do, what you got to teach your customers how to do is when they go to buy something, right? They should only be buying something that they know if they've verified through their own process that's a problem. And typically, yes, it means you're paying full price for stuff. Yes, it typically means you're not getting it on a launch price. Yes, you're probably buying it, and it would have cost you more if you just bought it before. In the long run, it's cost effective to buy it when you're ready for it and you understand what your bottleneck is, even if you pay 3 times as much as you would have gotten it during the launch, rather than getting all these little trinkets right? We get all these little trinkets and we stockpile them and we get them and we start working on them. And really, all it's really doing is delaying us from solving the bottleneck. You got right now. I can. I don't have to work with you. I don't have to know you. You have at least five bottlenecks that are keeping you from making the money you need to make. You have at least five, and you should be solving the biggest one right now, whatever it costs. Now, there's a process. Again, now I don't have time to go through that process, but you should be solving that problem. And you solve the problem until you're ready to spend money on it. So number one, you got to teach them how to learn. Number two, you got to teach them how to think. AI is not going to do it all for them until you do those two things. Number three, you got to help them learn how to market. You got to help them figure out how to get in front of the right customer and get the right customer in front of their product. And that takes some work. But I'll tell you one thing. Number one, um, they've got to learn they've got to learn what their USP is. Most people don't understand that. They don't understand what their USP is, or they haven't taken the time to figure out what can I offer the market uniquely that they got to come to me to get. Well, you got to figure that out, and you got to teach your customer. Don't let your customer think that just because they're selling today, that they're going to be selling tomorrow. I always tell this story, and when I was a banker in Chicago, and my first experience in business was I was a junior banker, and our unit was the was a bank had a banking relationship with SoftSheen, and SoftSheen sold Activator for a Jerry curl, right? And so and it sold. I mean, it made them so much money for so long that by the time that the Jerry curl started to go out of style, I remember my boss went to them and asked them, "Will say, well, what do you have in development? What are you ready to bring to the market?" They had no idea. Their one product was the activator for the Jerry curl, and they didn't have anything ready. They didn't know what their unique position was, and so yes, they made a lot of money. And so typical of family businesses, I think the dad passed away, or he left it to the kids, and the kids just didn't really develop a USP. They didn't figure out how they want to market, and so they didn't have anything. So listen, if your customer, just because they're selling today, doesn't mean they're going to be selling tomorrow, and you got to make help them figure out what the USP basically says. Um, what do I have to offer the market that if that they must come to me to get uniquely, that they cannot get anywhere else, and that it's better than doing nothing. You got to help them figure out what that is. And they may not even thought about that, but you got to help them learn how to market. USP, they've got to have upsells and cross sells, right? So in other words, you get a customer, better make sure that customer's spending every dime with you they can. Well, how do I like doing upsells? Well, prepare to lose prepare not to have that customer spend with you everything that they can, right? Uh, so unique selling proposition, upsells and cross sells, marketing alliances. You need to have affiliate relationships and partnering relationships, referral relationships. It is a it, it's not an advanced strategy to turn your customers into referral magnets. Right now, it's a lot of work. And I confess, man, I haven't done the best job of that, right? In helping the customers become, because some of your customers will be your best evangelists. It takes a lot of work to do that, but you got to do it. Marketing alliances, affiliate relationships, partner relationships, referral relationships, all three help you to be operating on cylinders. And if you're going to be teaching your customer, if they don't have those three things in operation, they're not hitting on all their marketing cylinders, right? Right. So USP, marketing alliances, and list building, and that goes without saying. And so a list is not necessarily for you to just kind of hit them and tag them whenever you want to, right? It is a it's you were developing a relationship. And so it takes time, it takes nurturing, it takes sometimes talking about things in a way that you might be a little uncomfortable doing, and you got to reveal a little bit of yourself to people. So again, all of those things are things you have to teach. Your customer's not going to know these things, and they're going to think AI is going to do it all for them. Well, I'm just going to get the AI to write my emails for me. Uh, listen, listen. I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to get an AI to mimic your style and how to do all those things. I promise you, there will never be anybody that can replace you that has real things happen to them, real relationships when you sit down and you type your email to your customers every day. Even if all you're saying is buy your stuff, right? You still need to be the one writing that email. Now, you got to help them learn how to learn. You got to help them learn how to think. You got to help them to learn how to market, and you got to help them learn how to sell. And most of us come to uh, internet marketing. We may have heard of people like Dan Kennedy, and we have heard about people and scientific advertising, but there's some fundamentals we have to learn. And I listen, and I know that it's distasteful to some people. Because if you come from a corporate job, you don't want to bother with learning how to do direct response. It feels like you're a used salesperson, a used sales car salesman, a used car salesman. You kind of have that feeling. You don't want to do that, but you have to learn direct response. It's selling in print, and they're fundamentals. Now, once you learn fundamentals of direct response, you can then start getting the AI to do stuff for you. You can then start designing your sales letter. You can start designing your own persona and all those other things. But you have to know the fundamentals. You have to know the grammar. You have to know the ABCs of selling in print. If you don't know those fundamentals, what's happening is the AI is doing stuff for you, or you're just kind of winging it, and you're missing things, right? And your customer's missing things if you're their trainer. You have to get them to learn the fundamentals. You have to get them to learn the grammar. You have to get them to then go through logic and question it. You got to get them, once they know grammar and they start to question it for themselves, then they can implement, right? So you got to teach them to learn how to sell. So for so for us, I mean, we're still going to be doing business and AI, right? So we'll still do tutorials, and you'll be able to teach your customers AI, right? Using our tutorials. But so when we do a front end course, right, you'll see it, right? You'll see, and the course kind of feels a little basic. That's because it's supposed to be. I'm teaching the grammar of a subject, right? So I'm teaching, here's what you need to know. Here are the necessities if you're going to do something with this. Now, every so often, I will do for a front end course, and now, which is a more of a narrative course. I'll do a hand drawn course. It'll be a narrative course, right? But typically, it's going to be a tutorial course. Then logic. So in other words, we then move on to what I call the narrative tutorials, right? And that's the hand drawn portion. That's like a PowerPoint style where it's more of a talking thing. It's less of a demonstration. Grammar's demonstration, logic is narrative, and then rhetoric is either a live masterclass or tutorial masterclass. So there's a logic in what we're doing. Grammar, right? Basics, logic, questioning, rhetoric, implementation, right? Put it in your business. This is what you're teaching your customers. You're teaching them the grammar of a subject, teaching them the logic of a subject, teaching them the rhetoric of a subject, where they must then apply the materials. Now, in some cases, now naturally, of course, I want you to buy all three parts of our funnel, right? Of course, I do, but I just want you to know that there is a you really benefit your customer by getting all three, right? You teach them the basics, yes, or you learn the basics. So in other words, you may be, well, I don't really want to teach anybody something. I just want to learn it for myself. Wonderful. When you learn the grammar, right? And you might think, well, that's all I really need to know. Well, actually, if you really want to dive, you've got to then start thinking about strategy. And so typically at the narrative level, right? I will try to do a strategy level. So in other words, let's think about how this applies. And then in rhetoric, we demonstrate how it applies, how to put it into your business. All three parts of the funnel are really, in my case, in my belief, they're all pretty vital to the learning process, and especially to the teaching process if you are going to be positioning yourself as an educator in your market or niche. And so there are concepts, right? I talked about the theory of constraints. That's teaching people how to solve problems in the right order. Classical education. Now, again, I don't call it classical education in my products. You'll never see that. Now, I did put the word trivium and classical education in my product, AI for kids. Right? And really, it's the same learning process. It's how you learned anything. If you're a tradesperson, If you're a mechanic, it's how you learned how to be a mechanic. If you are a commercial banker like I was back in the 90s, it's how you learned how to write loans for corporate customers. It's how you learn how to read financial statements. Classical education is the way most people learn. Now, again, I think now that uh, I think that schools could benefit from kind of going back to that, right? But that's neither here nor there. I'm not here to comment about that. You should be training marketing fundamentals, right? So you've got to teach people how to have a USP. How do they find a USP? You've got to teach them how to set up funnels and that they should have a funnel. And it doesn't matter what platform they use. Whatever platform they use, you should teach them how to have a funnel. Teach your customers how to set up a funnel. And if they don't have what I call um, an upsell, you need to definitely have them to have a cross sell. When your customer hits when your customer has a thank you page and they're just telling people go straight to my to get the product, well, that's an opportunity, right? Every opportunity is a cross sell opportunity. And if you're going to maximize the revenue from your now from a customer, you got to make sure you're taking advantage of those situations. And truth be told, and I'm case in point. If you just because you feel, oh, I don't want to ask them, I don't want to do a funnel, I'm still going to buy something from somebody on the subject that you're probably teaching on. So if let's say you're teaching on copywriting, and I come to your page, you think, well, I'm going to be an ethical marketer, and I'm not going to have them go through a funnel, right? Okay, wonderful. But guess what? I'm probably still going to buy some other copywriting material, and so I go someplace else, and they got paid, and you did because you didn't bother to put something on your thank you page that was relevant to what I just bought. Please don't ethical yourself right out of some money, right? So don't do that. And these are marketing fundamentals you have to not only exercise, but you got to teach your customer how to do the same thing. And then direct response. Now, I have not done a lot of direct response fundamentals because quite honestly, um, I don't put myself in a class with with Dan Kennedy. But you know what? The truth of the matter is, I am a trainer. I've had Ultimate Insiders for a long time. It is my responsibility to make sure that people understand the fundamentals of direct response. And so to the best of my ability, I am going to teach direct response fundamentals to Ultimate Insiders. I just am because they have to be taught. And so just because I'm on the way, now I know enough. I know enough. Now, I don't know nothing. I know enough. And so they have to be taught. And so you've got to have the content and you've got to teach your customers direct response fundamentals. Because if you don't teach them, uh, your customers, they are missing things in their sales process. I don't care what they're doing. They're missing things in their emails. They don't understand direct response fundamentals, the headline. They don't understand empathy. Most people get empathy all wrong, right? When the bullets come, where they come, colors, all of those things that are direct response fundamentals. They are direct response fundamentals. Now, you can deviate from that, but you got to know the fundamentals first. You can't go, and most of us do this in information marketing. I'm guilty of it myself. We learn a little bit, and then we immediately start getting fancy. Right? We immediately start going off and we might buy an information product and there's somebody in there saying, look at my sales process and I generated 10 gazillion dollars using this sales process. You think, oh man, I'm going to skip the fundamentals. They're boring. I'm going to do what Guru Guy says or Guru Gal says because they're having a lot of success. And then you put their principles on top of your product and you wonder why it doesn't work. It doesn't work because you don't know the fundamentals. We all do that. That's the nature of our business. We all do that. That's because a lot of us come in the middle of a conversation, right? How many of you all join information marketing from the middle of a conversation? And if you never go back and you never get those fundamentals, then what happens is you continue. It's like they say a plane kind of goes on a trajectory, right? And if you just continue to go at 10 degrees off, right? The longer you go at 10 degrees off, you're going to be eventually be way off from where you should be going. Right? A plane is supposed to course correct, right? They say a plane starts out right? Like this, and then it course corrects, right? And then it course corrects some more before it doesn't never necessarily fall in a straight line. And again, a lot of us come in the middle and we're 3 degrees off, but we never correct. And so we just continue to make bad decision after bad decision, writing bad copy after bad copy, and continue to focus. We continue to build on bad fundamentals. So listen, you have to start teaching good fundamentals. I don't care what the AI says, and the AI can do some of this for you, but as I pointed out, it doesn't know everything, and it cannot possibly do everything. You still need to know them, and you still need to be doing your customer a big favor by showing them the fundamentals. So theory of constraints, so they know what to solve when. Classical education, so they understand how to learn. Marketing fundamentals, so they understand the fundamentals of getting the right people in front of their product, and then direct response. How do I make the sale? Right? How do I make the sale? If you have ever done, I think it was uh, Russell Brunson's something webinar, perfect webinar, right? He's teaching direct response, but he's teaching it in the context of webinars. And basically, the whole thing is about 5 hours. It's direct response. That's all he's doing, right? Ryan Dice did something about video sales letters. All he did was direct response. For years, right? If you've been to any of our webinars, I've always said go and do a search for David Fry's 12-point bulletproof sales letter. What is that? He's got one sheet. It is direct response, right? And so it's wonderful if you can rely on those subjects, but you need to know it. That's David Fry's version. That's Russell Brunson's version. That's Ryan Dice's version. You need to know it, right? You need to know direct response, so it then becomes your version, right? You got to know it that well because it's like ABCs. It's like the grammar of selling. It's selling. Well, I don't want to learn how to sell, right? That's why I'm on the internet. I'm on the internet, so I have to learn how to sell. Yes, you do, and it's more competitive than ever because people have just, AI allows people to just put stuff out there, right? And they're just throwing it out there. It's just generating and throwing it. I can do all this, and I can make great pictures, and again, they're just throwing it out there, right? And it doesn't matter. And so somebody has to know what this stuff means. And so that's going to be you. So, um, and so I kind of want to kind of give you this sense for what I really want to do with our Ultimate Insiders this coming year in 2026. And so if you feel like, well, I know all those fundamentals, then look, um, you can just get our content. We provide one funnel per month, and you don't have to bother with trying to teach your customers fundamentals, right? That you can just skip all that. You can just say, you know what, I'm going to teach them AI, and that's going to be it. I'll give you the AI to teach them. And but still, you become an ultimate insider. You're going to be able to kind of get this other piece of the insight. One more thing is that you probably saw in the email. If you didn't, hopefully you did. I just did. Um, the most recent update, what I call November update for our Notebook LM course. I want to explain this to you a little bit here. Um, Basically, what I've done with this offer is I've made it so that I'm not going to do another Notebook LM course, like a Notebook LM 10.0. I'm just going to continue to update this offer. Now, right now, as of time we speak, now that offer was $37 when I first launched it. Just for a few days, I'm going to bring it to $17, depending on when you see this, and then it's going to go up to 37. And it's only going to go up there because every time there's an update, I'm just going to add to that product. So you're not going to have to buy another Notebook LM course. Like, first of all, I don't want to start over again. So uh, I'm just going to when they update the platform, I'm going to update that course. I'll do if there's a December update, I'll do December update. I just added the November update. November update included, man. If you haven't seen Notebook LM do, uh, was it slides? Right? And infographics, you got to go in and try it. And now you can do the video overview, you can customize the video overview, and now they've taken deep research from Gemini and they put it inside of Notebook LM. And so I covered that in the notebook. And so if your customer is learning Notebook LM, you should be teaching them these things. And so basically what this offer allows you to do is allows you to stay on top of it. And so, I did one AI video per day, and I didn't like it because it was kind of all over the place. And so basically I'm doing that now with all of the products. So eventually I'm going to do a chat GPT update product. So maybe the next time that I do a chat GPT video course, there's going to be an offer in that funnel for you to get all the updates. So then once you get that chat GPT update course, I'll just keep updating it. Right. So that's what that'll be. So for right now, the first one I've done, and I'm going to see if this works, is Notebook LM Updates. You can get that at the plrshow.com where it says Notebook LM Update. You can get that, and then you'll see, number one, you'll see the front end course, right? You'll see 20 resale rights videos, but you'll also see a September update. You'll see the November update, which I think is just so cool that Google is doing, and so eventually I'll get around to setting up uh, a Google a Nano Banana or Google VO like a visual. I'll set up one for Gemini. I'll set up one for ChatGPT, so we don't have to keep releasing, um, you know, um, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. You just get one course and then you'll have all the updates. And then I can start doing some different titles. Right. So because we really have to get uh uh move on to some different platforms other than ChatGPT and Google. And they're just trying to one up each other, right? And so pick that up. And then on Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to do Canva, and I will probably put a Canva update course in there. So this could be the last new course that I do a Canva. So on Tuesday or Wednesday, you want to make sure you get inside of there. And what I'll probably do now the update courses, I'm going to price them at $37. What I may do on Tuesday or Wednesday is I might price it initially for the point of the launch, it may be 17 to 27. But then once it goes up to 37 or 47, then it's just going to stay there because I'm going to keep adding to this. So Canva 4.0, I will do one front end update. It could be the last time I do this. And then you will need to go ahead and get the update course, that's going to be part of that funnel. I'm going to do that on Tuesday or Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And then on Friday, right? My Black Friday, it's really going to be on Friday, right? Instead of early Black Friday or Black Saturday or Cyber Monday. It's going to be Black Friday and it's going to continue on that week. If you missed our System IO bundle, right? I put all of our System IO in one course. And it's going to be, I think I did it for Laurel's birthday. I called it her 29th birthday. I did it for $29, right? So you will see that bundle again. One AI video per day. I will put that in a bundle, right? And that's all going to be on Black Friday. And then our Chat GPT bundle. I have made that available. I'm gonna price that to sell now. What you may have to do, I may not. I may only have one. I may put them all in the funnel. So you may need to get the System IO funnel to see these other two offers, because the pricing is going to be a special. So make sure you get the System IO bundle. If you already got it, let me know, and then I'll bring you into the middle of the funnel, and you'll be able to see that there. That's going to be on Friday, of next week. Well, everybody, I have really enjoyed tonight. I have missed training. I just really didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. And one of the challenges of training by doing AI on a webinar is that I'd almost have to do all the slides ahead of time. And so because of the bandwidth, right? And so it's challenging to train live and to do the kind of AI I do, right? Because I'm going to be in three or four platforms, and this PC, which has, I think it's maxed out in terms of memory, is already at its peak. So this is another year. I'm probably going to have to double this from, I think, 32 gig to 64 gig um, this coming year. So maybe I'll be doing more live training once I do that. But right now, and I still think that what we talked about tonight is still valuable. And even though the theory of constraints sounds academic, and I don't want to do that, Um, if you were to look to, you know, what Jay Abraham, Jeff Bezos, all these cats, this is what they're on. They're on theory of constraints. They've all had their own exposure to it. Bezos has implemented it in his business. This is a necessary thing, and I want to make sure that you have this to teach your own customers. I've joined their society, right? I've joined their the the group, and to get certified. So again, so you will have training that you can actually go into your customer, and while everybody else is talking about AI, you'll be able to go into to your customer and actually help them. Because again, most people don't know the right problem to solve. It's not that they don't know they got a traffic problem. They probably do. It's just they solve that problem first when they should be solving it third. And so you've got to solve these things in order so that it actually does make you money. Solving a problem that you don't have with a thing you bought, the reason why it doesn't work is most of the time it's not that it's not an awesome product or that the instruction isn't awesome. It's because it was the wrong problem to solve. And so you got to be able to walk your customer step by step through a logical process of showing them the right problem to solve, or in other words, the bottleneck. And everybody's got at least five bottlenecks. You got to figure out which one to solve first. But again, thank you very much for hanging out with me, everybody. I really, really, really have missed being able to train you and talk to you. I will put this on YouTube sometime tonight. And with that, be on the lookout again for our Black Friday bundle. Make sure you're signed up for our email updates. Also, make sure you got our Notebook LM updates now. So again, you will never have to get another Notebook LM course from me. You get the update course, and then I will continue to update Notebook LM. I'm going to do the same thing for Canva, and eventually I will get around to Chat GPT. So again, I'm not doing Chat GPT. I think I'm up to volume 10 now. Right? So we got to move on. I've got to cover the updates. You get one course, you get the updates, and then you move on. Okay, everybody, thanks very much for hanging out with me here. I appreciate you all so much, and I'm going to dart out of here. Have a let's see. Greg is saying, can you add in a training on how to do written PLR with Notebook LM? Okay, when you say how to do written PLR, Greg, what do you mean? That's interesting. So do you mean how to rewrite PLR with Notebook LM, or do you mean how to? Greg might have cut out. All right. So Greg, if you're still there, right? I was about ready to dismiss everybody, but okay, but maybe Greg cut out and he had a question. I missed it. Just kind of chatting, but in any case, very much good being with you all. Have a great night and a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.